What's going on, everyone? This is Mitch with SC Weather. Hope y'all had a great New Year's. In this video, we're going to break down some potential changes as we get into January. Well, we're in January now, but as we get deeper into January, because there is some things to talk about, and it's been being talked about for about a week now. But some things are starting to come together, and there's some more things that we need to come together to get winter weather here on the East Coast. And, there's people who are watching this from the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic. I'm talking about you guys too. There is a chance with this pattern coming up, so we're going to break that down. Before we get deep into this video, if you guys have not hit that subscribe button, much appreciated if you do. I started this off by talking weather about South Carolina, and then I've spread it to the entire eastern U.S., and I talk about major systems really anywhere. So it's an awesome supporting factor for you to hit that subscribe button. Like the video if you like it. We're gonna talk deep into what could potentially cause colder air, wintry weather. Not just show you kind of a graphic and say, hey, there's a potential here, there's a potential there. We're gonna kind of go deep into what would cause it and what kind of pattern we need in place to cause it. So let's go on and get deep into this. So we're going to start this off by showing you the European ensembles mean of the heights and anomalies right here. So basically in the red and the oranges that you see, you have higher heights, and the cooler colors, you have lower heights. So I know a lot of people aren't going to understand this, and trust me, I'm always learning too. I've learned a lot in the past month or so, actually. But I'm going to show you kind of what we need to get a good pattern for winter weather here in the southeast and mid-Atlantic, and a more stormy pattern for the northeast for maybe potential nor'easters, blizzards. I know some winter weather enthusiasts, people who love active weather, snowy weather, definitely want that. So let's talk about this. So what we have here is we have no blocking on top, and this is January 1st. But as we move into time, the higher heights, so this area right here, check it out. As we get deeper into time, we get maybe 4 or 5 days out. What happens here is you get a negative NAO that sets up here. And if you don't know what that is, in a nutshell, it basically causes blocking in far North America, well near Greenland. And this is going to be a west-based one. So this is going to be a little bit more west than your average negative NAO that sets up, or the positional average of where it sets up. So what happens here is, and keep in mind when I'm talking, you need more than just that, especially for winter weather deep in the south and the southeast, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina. You need more than just that. What we got here is we move deeper in time. You get some ridging that starts to occur right here. Starts to get into Alaska, and when you get some ridging into Alaska, that's a good ingredient for ingredients that we need to come together for cold and stormy weather here in the southeast. So we're at about day 8 or 9. We're starting to get into the 9th or 10th of January here. And check this out. What this is you got big time blocking up here because of that negative NAO. You got ridging starting to build in Alaska, and you got a positive PNA right here starting to get going here. Positive PNA, basically what that happens, and this isn't a complete look of a positive PNA, but what happens in a positive PNA is you got big time ridging out west, and you got troughing to the east. Troughing is a cold front. So troughing, if you get a big dip right here, and you get low pressure that can ride through here, and you've got cooler than average anomalies temperatures, basically you get a good storm track. You get a stormy storm track. So you get low pressures dipping down here, or you get a 50-50 low. You get a CAD event, cold air damming, whatever it may be. You get an option. You get a chance here. So, but do you have a steady supply of cold air even with a pattern like that? That is a big time question, because to be honest, I don't see a huge supply of cold air. Basically, when you can get energy that comes from the northern stream that can bring its own cold air or help to set the foundation on top, and each area, each storm system that moves, it helps to cool down the atmosphere more and more. So obviously we get into about the second week of January. Good patterns set in place, but not really a positive PNA in place. You still got ridging in Alaska, which you need. you still got the negative NAO, which really just looks the setup here. And I'm just going to say blocking for now on instead of negative NAO. You got good blocking up here. Basically, you have warmer than average temperatures in the Arctic, which is good because basically, and we're going to talk a little bit about this too, when you get warmer than average temperatures in far North America in the Arctic, you have a chance and potentially to affect the polar vortex, to split it, to displace it. Basically sudden warming can occur. Sorry if I get my words mixed up, guys. And it's actually causing and going to cause even very cold weather in Europe and things like that right now before it can work into our area. If it happens, as we get into time, but basically here you got some good troughing setting up. You don't have a big supply of cold air. If we could get a positive PNA to set up here, you basically got a steady supply of cold air to work with an active southern stream, an active storm track to really get this going. I don't want to ramble too much on that because I know that is hard to understand, guys, and I understand that it is hard to understand because let me tell you, I'm always learning and I have a lot to learn. So I'm here to try to break it down as good as possible. So and this is the European Ensemble also. I'm going to be mainly talk on that, the European Ensemble and the European. I'm going to talk about the GFS a little bit here in a second, but basically, what I just showed you, what that basically boils down to is once we can get through the first week of January, first off, the first week of January is toast. You might as well, I'm not saying toast as in we're going to torch, as in we're going to be super warm. What I'm saying is you can chalk it off as a loss for winter 2021. You can, it's pretty much, it's not going to produce really anything. I think there's a chance for a winter storm, a snowstorm in the Northeast here Monday and Tuesday of this coming week. But outside of that, for the Mid-Atlantic, I don't think much is going to occur. And you can tell this is temperature anomalies. So obviously the warmer colors like the reds, the whites, things like that, and the bluish green colors are below average temperatures. These are above average temperatures. So check out what happens in time. In time, you start to get to that blocking. Basically, you're getting warming occurring in the Arctic or in far North America, basically in Canada. Not really in the Arctic quite yet, but basically this is that block setting up. This is that negative NAO setting up. So I know we're getting a little deeper into time here, but we're getting into the 9th to 10th range. And by the way, this is going to be a time frame to watch for a big East Coast storm. But anyways, and you're about the second and getting into the third week of January, you're starting to get the below average temperatures in the southern U.S. And it maybe starts off in the southern U.S., but it eventually shifts into the East Coast and the Southeast. Keep in mind, I know you're seeing above average temperatures still in the Northeast, but it's not a torch or anything like that. We're entering another thing that favors this, and there's so much to talk about, but another thing that really favors this scenario is we're entering peak climo time. So climo basically is, what I'm saying is we're entering on average the coldest time of the year, which is mid to late January, which is basically for everybody. Not saying the coldest time, the snowiest time of the year. I'm saying on average the coldest time of the year for the lower 48. So that helps us. So yeah, maybe you don't see deep colors of blue and green or anything like that, but even if you see, some light blues, maybe a medium to darker blues, that's enough cold air for maybe a marginal event, especially in CAD-prone areas here in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. So we're getting going in time, and it kind of sticks around, but you kind of lose it at the end. But you're getting still blocking in the far north here. So I want to talk about here. This is basically the polar vortex. So you got the polar vortex on top. As we get moving to time, and let me move through here right here real quick. If you notice, and I know this isn't going to be all that easy to understand, but it's a factor, and it's something that we're talking about that could happen. Basically, a displacement of the polar vortex has a chance to happen. Southern warming in the Arctic, and it has a chance to displace cold air south. It displaces it, as in it moves it to another area. So if you look right here, we're getting into January 8th, 10th, 9th. If you look way off over here, it's getting displaced into maybe Siberia. So there's a lot of cold air getting thrown into that area. But if we move into time, and you can even see it right here, it looks like maybe a displacement right here unlatches basically from the polar vortex and maybe moves into the lower 48 as like a lobe or something. But that is another factor. That is a unsure factor. I mean, we don't know a lot about what's going to occur with that. And honestly, we don't know a lot what's going to occur with any of this, but we know that we have been seeing this for a while. So another thing to really talk about here is the Pacific jet. And, you know, deep into the weather world, people have been talking about this more and more. Basically, you have the Pacific jet, which is right here. And yes, it helps to supply storm systems to us in the southeast. But if it's too amplified, if it's too jacked up, if it's just out there on steroids rolling through, yes, we need it for storm systems for the southern stream. But at the same time, we don't need it super amplified, because what happens is the warm Pacific air gets wrapped up into it. So when you get warm Pacific air, especially here in the southeast, it's going to put a wrench into the cold air that we need. It is basically a factor playing against us, but at the same time, we kind of need it. If that makes any sense. We need it for moisture. We need it for storm systems. So after talking about all that, how does that factor in to if we're going to see anything soon? Well, let me tell you one thing. We're not going to really benefit from this. Now, in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, maybe a little sooner. I think they'll benefit from it sooner. But here in the Southeast, we're not going to benefit this, I don't think, until about the late 3rd to 4th week of January. I think that's when our time is going to come to see a potential for winter weather here. Obviously, operational models like the European and the GFS do not go out that far to the 3rd or the 4th week of January or anything like that. But what we can look is this is the latest European model from overnight. So it gets going. You get a system. We're going to watch this system for Monday for the Northeast, because this potentially could dump a quick little bit of snow. And then we get kind of quiet here for a little bit into next week. So we're around the January 7th, the 8th time frame. And I think there's a signal here for the 8th through to the 11th for a big time storm. Not for the southeast, maybe for the mountains. There's not enough cold air really outside of the mountains, but notice this area right here that's really, that's a good thumping of snow. At the same time, it's almost 200 hours out, and it really rides up as the storm system bombs out. I wouldn't say bombs out, but it gets stronger right at the coast of the Northeast, produces a decent snowstorm for the Northeast. We need these storms to keep coming, and the main reason is because it helps to make that snowpack deeper up here. When you get deeper snowpack up to the north of us, that helps funnel in more cold air. It amplifies the cold air that's even being modeled. So we look at the GFS here, and I think I have it a little bit too forward here. So here comes that one. Here's that one storm that the Europeans show for here in a few days. It really has a chance to get strong right off the coast and maybe produce blizzard conditions on isolated areas right on the coast, especially in Maine, maybe Massachusetts. But as you move past this time frame, here comes that system. The timing on this system is a little bit different. And I think this is the system that the European is showing. GFS has it just scooting off the southeast coast and it's gone. But there's another one that comes right here. And I tell you what, the low track on this storm is pretty darn good, but there's just not enough cold air in place. It moves through, and it's pretty close for CAD areas in North Carolina. In fact, it's pretty much a hit. But it looks like almost like a 50-50 low, big-time storm for CAD. And when I say CAD, that's cold air damming. And then it moves through, and then it looks like it may get suppressed to the point where the high pressure, it just doesn't look like it does anything for the Northeast or anything. It gets on. But what I'm trying to show you is the storm systems, and here comes another one. deep in the GFS run that really gets going off the coast. Still not enough cold air. But let me tell you, we're going to have a lot of misses before we have hits deep in the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, even in southern areas in the mid-Atlantic or upper southeast, whatever you may call it. We're going to have some misses before we get hits. So remember that. I think honestly we're going to waste and throw away the first 2 weeks of January in the southeast and maybe even mid-Atlantic. But so what this is the European EPS total snowfall. So this is the European Ensembles right here, going out to 15 days, so about middle of January. Obviously, as always, in the middle of winter, you got a strong signal, especially for interior areas of the Northeast. You get a little bit closer for you guys right here. And there is a signal, a little bit of signal for the big cities, but 6 inches. There's a little bit of signal for Boston. New York City, it's close, but you know, Washington, D.C., not much of anything. Maybe a couple inches, but you know, we're going to be kind of grasping at straws here for the first 2 weeks of January. Not much of a signal. The mountains, I think, are going to have a chance to get hit maybe a time or two the first 2 weeks of January, but outside of that, I don't think a lot, anything outside the mountains. This is the same thing, except this kind of goes out to, well, yeah, about mid-January. So this is the ensemble runs for the GEFS. There is a signal, and to me this looks like a CAD signal, a cold air damming. You see how it's kind of like dipping southeast into the cold air damming area? To me that symbolizes a CAD event, and maybe we favor that over a Miller A event to start this off, but who knows. But that's all I got, guys. I've mentioned it a couple times in this video, and I'll show you all my little graphic I make. I make my little graphics on Paint, Microsoft Paint. It's it might not be easy, but I don't really have any software. But this is obviously the thumbnail. But basically, you know, in this area right here, you're always going to stand a low chance of winter weather. Even the areas in the more muted-looking pink, where I am in Columbia, Atlanta, shooting through central Alabama, Mississippi, northern Louisiana. I think there's still going to be a chance in these areas. I tell you what, for areas in central South Carolina and even northeast Georgia, especially in central South Carolina, we are due for an ice storm. We haven't had a big one here in a few years, and we used to have them about every couple of years, it seems like. If it wasn't an ice storm, it was at least a minor icing event. Charlotte area, I think y'all are due. Y'all are coming. I think it's going to be the 3rd or 4th week of January, and there's going to be a threat. I don't know what that threat's going to consist of, but there's going to be a threat. If you look up here in this, I don't know, it's kind of like a wannabe blue color I made here. I think there is going to be some nor'eastern threats as we get to the mid to the later part of the month here. There's been a lack of them the last couple of years, but we had one in December, and I think there's more to come. So that's all I got, guys. I do think we got active times coming ahead. We just need the negative NAO to stay in place. We really need a positive PNA to set up to funnel in and supply cold air for us, and we need the ridging in Alaska, and we need the jet stream to keep pumping some storm systems for us, but at the same time, don't need to amplify this warm air out the Pacific. So we need some things to come together. As always, we need pretty much miracle status here in South Carolina sometimes. But that's all I got, guys. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and y'all have a great day.